Cool. Well, we still have about like 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So I guess, is there anything about like, wow, that was an incredible life story that you shared. Um, I'm curious if there are any specific parts of it that stand out to you that you want to tell me more about.
Now that we're talking about stories, I think I want to dive deeper into the story part. Like there was a story structure in the 7 years of like this spiritual nomadic journey I had, which actually also taught me about storytelling in a weird way.
Yeah.
So the way that I saw that 7 years, it was like a 3-act structure.
Wow.
The first act was like what I would call the seeking phase. It was me basically out there on a mission, like awakening and going, I'm on this mission of trying to heal myself. Yeah, I basically was looking outwards in order to heal, right? Seeking answers. And then when I started healing and starting to get the answers I needed, I went on this second phase, which is really about the journey of like living and being and experiencing. I call that the first phase would be seeker phase, and the second phase is the experiencer phase, where I wasn't needing to seek so much and get answers outside of me because I saw what was inside. And then through that, I was just experienced life as I was without needing to look for answers. So for that period of time, I was just living life. Like I did so many things. I like jumped in a van for 3 months and just did the van life around Central Europe and the Balkans and lived out of a van for that. I went to the Himalayas, like in Nepal. I, spent a lot of time in India, like doing all sorts of like life experience stuff. But also through that, I was learning a lot about myself. And once I started getting enough of this, seeing myself, I was like, I need to do something about this. Like, not that it was conscious, but I felt like, okay, I need to create something. So I went from seeker to experiencer to creator. And I basically started getting the experiences that I had and I wanted to make things. I wanted to create things. That's what led me into building the storytelling and the filmmaking. So how is that a 3-act structure? Well, first off, I started, what led to that, just to explain, was I was first telling my own story because I've been shooting photography for a long time. Even though I was working in marketing, I've been shooting photography for like 15, 20 years. And when I started traveling, I really got back into it because I had the time and I had so much wealth of things that I could shoot and stories out there. So I was documenting my life. And because I had a lot of anxiety that was based around expression, being able to express myself really healed me. And then I started telling stories of other people. When I met them, I was like, wow, there's so many people in these, when you go to these spiritual places, like you've been to India, a lot of people are on the same journey. Like, obviously, I'm not the only person that's ever done this, right? There's so many people out there. And I kept meeting these people and I thought their stories were so fascinating. I started this platform called Seekers and Healers where I was basically interviewing them, telling their story. I was writing it and then I was shooting their portrait. I love the process of storytelling, getting their story. But I hated writing. And then one day I was like, you know what, I'm just going to film this and see what would happen and get some B-roll and and that's where I fell in love. That's why I was like, this is what I want to do. Tell people stories that are around transformation. And so I did that. So that's what led me to basically doing the work that I do now. Now, what was really interesting was, this 3-act structure that I just told you of the seeker, experience, and then the creator. When I was I heard like 1,000 stories, like thousands of stories, and I told like hundreds of stories, right? And when I started when you hear so many stories, you start putting like a framework together of
Yeah.
everything is a pattern.
Yeah.
And it was always the same pattern of these stories, these transformation stories was something, phase one, act one, something happens in their life. Usually it's quite traumatic and they wake up. They wake up from it, and when you start to see it, when you wake up from it, you can't unsee it. There's no going back.
Yeah.
And then once you do that, you have two choices. You either go forward and kind of figure it out, what's going on, that the thing that's woken you up and the thing that you have to resolve. It's like a calling, you know, in Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey, talk about the calling to go on adventure. So basically it's that, or you cease to exist. Like you can't, there's no middle ground. You have, and so most people go seeking. That's what I did. I went to seek, you know, I had the anxiety. I woke up from it. I couldn't not see it. I then went on the journey. And then same with other people. And then usually the journey is that experiencing bit. They go, and then they experience, and there's ups and downs and hurdles and all these things that would happen through the journey that teaches them more and more about who they are, and then starts healing them. And then you get to this kind of climax of like, you're never completely like free. You're always going to be doing work and stuff, but there's enough work that's done that you overcome the major hurdles and you really see who you are. And then you get to know, like, I'm here, this is my purpose, this is who I am. And then you go in the creative phase of, I'm going to now come back to my community or a new community and bring back the growth and experiences and create something to serve the community. Every story, 99.9% of the stories was the same framework, including my one.
Yeah, I mean, I resonate with that too.
Yeah, that's the hero's journey, actually. And it's funny that I never studied storytelling, but through that I learned it. And then one day I was like, picked up a book. I don't know if you guys will study Joseph Campbell and storytelling, but it's the same framework. It's been there since the Plato Socrates days. Joseph Campbell, just in 100 years ago, just kind of modernized it a bit. But every storytelling framework, not even Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, has the same framework. Some is like 3 stages, some is 7 stages, but it all follows that arc. And if you watch any Hollywood movie, read any book, it has the same framework. So that's how I learned about the storytelling, and that's how I tell my stories when I go and tell human stories and work with nonprofits. I should probably explain a bit more what I do, but I work with purpose-led businesses and nonprofits to basically do documentary storytelling for them. And I always use some sort of human story, whether it's the founders or the people they help or someone within the ecosystem. I will tell these stories, and every story has the similar framework. So I learned all this through my own story, my own journey, and then listening and telling other people's stories. And now I use it as my framework to tell other people's stories for business, for my own business. Yeah,
that's amazing.
So I think that's kind of interesting to share, because this is about storytelling.
That is so fascinating. I mean, like, I've always known that about you, like a little bit, but not in that much detail. Thank you for sharing that.